All right, everybody, we're going to get started with Crystal. So if you have a question for Crystal, go ahead and raise your hand. And we'll start with Kent. Kent, go ahead.
Big feet.
Hey, Crystal. Before we get into basketball, this is the one-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. And I know that the league, both WNBA and the NBA, are involved in trying to get that George Floyd Policing Act passed. I guess, what does it mean to you to be kind of an epicenter of everything that has happened in the last year, and what the team's doing towards furthering those ends?
Could you repeat that last part? Sorry.
Yeah, just, I mean, what if anything is the team doing to kind of commemorate the day and get involved in the process to try to get that Policing Act passed?
Yeah, the league as a whole is trying to put a message out today, have teams post a picture and shirts that we were given, call your senators. But as a whole, I know that Minnesota, I think, is having something at George Floyd Square, doing something special, giving out meals and things like that, things to remember him and his family. So I think just overall, it's going to be a nice day in Minnesota. So I may even pop over there myself and just, give my condolences and things like that and see what's going on there.
Jace, go ahead.
Hey, Crystal. Cheryl talked about this week kind of being like gold for you guys as a team to kind of, I don't know, really kind of, acclimate in fee and then just really work on the things that maybe you saw needed improvement from the first 3 games. How much do you feel like you guys have gotten done even in these first 3 practices, I guess, of this week?
A lot. I can't even put into words. Our pace has picked up. We're really focusing on our points of emphasis on what we want to do offensively so we don't, get stagnant late in games, the close games. And we're given our personal assignments of what we need to focus on when we get out on the court. So it's been helpful for everybody.
Any other questions for Crystal?
I have a question, Crystal. So obviously Nafisa has been back just recently in practice. And so what does that mean to you, to have someone that obviously you're so close to back in practice?
It's been a huge help. We want to be here since day one, but having a familiar face out there on her, that goes back to the UConn days. So immediately it was, actions with me and her. We know how to play off of each other. And she's just always great energy coming onto the floor.
We'll go Hobie and then Mike. Hobie, go ahead.
Hey, Crystal, it's going to be a while since you guys get on the floor for a game before you play your next one. Do you like having this break right now? And is it hard to kind of stay in the moment? I know the season just started, but how do you kind of keep yourself mentally engaged at a point in the season where there's a long break in between games this early?
Well, we don't have a win yet, so it's not really hard. We know we need to come in here and focus and work on what we have to do because we're winless and we know it's a long season, but we have things to get better at. Obviously, you guys have seen it, and we're putting that pressure on ourselves to get better.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the uniqueness of playing this, even though it's a week apart, playing the same team kind of in back-to-back games. And obviously, Seattle closed that game strong the last time out. What do you take from that game, even if it's a week later, to try to implement this weekend?
Obviously, try to create the things that we were doing in the first 3 quarters. And we know we didn't do in the fourth quarter. We had a lot of turnovers and fouls. They got out in transition, and that's where they really thrive. They put us in tough positions, rotating and getting easy buckets. So that's something we want to flip on them and go get easy buckets.
We'll go last question to Britt. Britt, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Britt.
Sorry, Crystal, what did you miss when Fee was out? I mean, she's such a multi-talented player. What in particular do you think that the team was missing during her absence?
Deflections into easy transition buckets, and then on the flip side of that, she's going to run the floor hard and get and move the ball for us. We had possessions where we stuck on the same side of the floor quite a bit. It was like possessions in a row. So someone that can move the ball side to side and go get easy buckets and draw fouls on them.
And both Ariel and Natalie haven't played with her. What kind of adjustments have been happening during practice for that?
I don't think it's anything like too specific. It's just everyone trying to get used to having her back in there and get a good flow. Because, like I said, we had possessions where the ball stuck around, and so we're trying to figure out different things to have better movement out there.
Alrighty, that'll be it for Crystal. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Crystal.
I'll be right back with Coach. All right, everybody, we will have Coach here. We'll get started with Kent and then go to Jace. And if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Kent, go ahead.
Hi, Coach.
I can't.
It being, I guess, the year anniversary of George Floyd's murder, I just wondering if you might reflect on what it's been like to be kind of at the epicenter of all this for the last year, and kind of talk about the WNBA's decision to really kind of help push for the George Floyd Policing Act and what that means for the Lynx.
Yeah, as you said, we were, this time last year, in the virtual training camp that we were conducting. And then, from that point forward, we talked a lot about our actions in 2016, the ways that we wanted to try to create conversation around change, and then the importance that we needed to do even more, and that this was unacceptable, and, that continued to use our voices. And then, being in the bubble together as a league, we had a chance to just, I think, do so much more and amplify in a very significant way the need for criminal justice reform, the need for reform in our policing. And so we've had a chance to really educate ourselves on the ways that you can enact change, and voting is one way. And then now, after you vote, it's your ability to understand legislation that currently exists and any changes you want in legislation and how to go about getting that change. So I think there's been tremendous involvement by our players in the league in that regard. And then, obviously hope it won't be long until as a nation, we're changing things again. That, you have on the very day that there's a conviction of the police officer who murdered George Floyd. On that very day, Dante Wright was shot by a police officer. So there's so much in terms of what needs to happen, but I think there's been actionable change that I've seen in some cities that are changing. Something simple as unarmed officers are the ones that are going to make the traffic stops that involve a expired tag, a air freshener, and that sort of thing. So I think there's just been real illumination of the ways in which the system is flawed and needs change so that we can stop putting our communities of color in these situations. So a lot's been done. And, as not only as a team here, Timberwolves and Lynx, but also the WNBA, I think we've done some really meaningful work.
Jace, go ahead.
What have you seen, Cheryl, from like the whole league getting together and maybe the impact that can have versus, like one team trying to lead the charge? Like in 2016, it was pretty much you guys, and it just seems like it's been such a broader effort with even more firepower, I guess, behind it, and maybe what impact that's had.
Yeah, I mean, it's well said. I think that was what, the players, I don't know if you all had a chance to watch the documentary that Chiney Ogwumike did, that, the 144, that if you watch that, it's really apparent that, the commitment that the players made to the reasons why they were willing to go to the bubble, not knowing what they were getting into, not knowing what the pandemic was going to bring and whether they were going to be in harm's way. And so there's a lot of uncertainty around it, but the thing that they were sure of is that they wanted to be together and try to, in the wake of the George Floyd murder, bring about real change and justice and continuing to, insert ourselves in places that needed our attention. And we weren't going there just to play basketball. That was secondary. They were going there on a mission to collectively use their voices. And I thought it was incredible how they strategized and organized very, very intentionally. And they, some of the outcomes of their work was really incredible. I'll never forget it. And I think about in 2016, it would have been more powerful if we could have everyone involved in it. I know that, when Jacob Blake, when that happened in Milwaukee and the NBA, teams made their decision. I think it's more powerful for the NBA when you have WNBA supporting, you have Major League Baseball and the other sports as a collective effort to tell people to stop what we're doing. We're not just here for your entertainment. We are people with families and we are going through these things. This is very real in our communities. That just helps to, shine that light brighter as to what's happening and how we all can be a part of the change.
Leo, go ahead.
Coach, so, what do you think, is next? I mean, just in terms of, on the same topic, for the league and, within players and everything, I mean, obviously the fight doesn't stop, just with, one season, obviously we're going to continue doing the best that we can. But what do you think, is the next actionable item that you'd like to see, the league, whether it's WNBA or NBA, kind of move in the direction of social change?
Well, I think being a part of, the next step is the actual reform component to it, understanding legislation that's on the books and what needs change, making sure that, elected officials are bringing about those changes. And I think that, I think for, we're not in a necessarily you're always in a voting cycle. We can't always just see it. This is every 4 years. We're always in a mindset of holding people accountable for decisions or a lack of decisions. I think there's even more when I think about our partnership with the Minneapolis Foundation, that, the Fund for Safer Communities. There are things so there's police reform, which is very real, but then I think there's also impacting our communities, bringing to light for our communities that, the systemic inequities and how larger corporations maybe that we partner with can play a role in maybe increasing awareness for where money needs to be put to improve the lives for all of us. This is not just communities of color. It's a situation that we're all affected by, and so I just think that that's the most meaningful work that we can do, and I think we can do that locally in our communities, which we do all the time as sports teams. But I think taking a deeper dive and more intentional efforts, like we were doing with the Minneapolis Foundation, and continue to educate ourselves. What's the next thing? What are we learning about that needs changing? And when we hear something that we know needs real reform, we've got to talk about it and bring it to light and help people understand exactly what's happening in the communities.
We'll go Danny and then Kent. Danny, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. This is Danny with Winsider. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the progress that the team's made on the defensive end during the last few days of practice, especially with Fee coming back, and just kind of how her presence and leadership helps on that end.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that Fee's presence, she's so long, impactful. I mean, she was a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. She got some votes. So there's no question that Fee's presence is going to help us. I don't know that I can sit here and say that I feel like we've made any meaningful progress on that end. It's hard to know when you're going against yourself. Some of the challenges that you have and some of these great players, it can't necessarily be duplicated at practice. I know that we're really talking both sides. I think there's, if you look at the games, if you take away transition baskets, I think our court-to-court defense has been really, really good. I think that we've locked in the game plans. I think we've done the right things schematically, but we're playing. If we make some shots, and we increase our ability to put the ball in the hole, I think you're going to see our defense actually improve, because we're shooting so low that who doesn't want to play off live ball, either live ball turnovers or a missed shot. That's when you get your most effective offense. So it's hard to know that. I think our offense might be as big of a solution to our defensive issues as anything. And offensively, I think in the second half against Seattle, and maybe moments in other games where we just feel like we kind of get ground down, to a halt, or we're not moving the ball. And so we've really, I think, probably maybe have made the most strides offensively. And we do think that will help our defense. I don't think we're doing a ton of things wrong. I don't know that there's any place for us to go, to change something schematically. We're not going to, all of a sudden start pressing or trapping. And I don't have the athleticism on that side of it. I do think that we can, in the fourth quarter against Seattle, we fouled too much. So turnovers and fouls in fourth quarters are a problem. Again, when you turn the ball over, live ball turnover, it's tough to get back in transition when you miss shots. So that's kind of how we're thinking of it. I don't think we have massive problems defensively. I don't think we're going to be an elite defensive team. But I do think that our offense will make our defense a little bit better. And then we can maybe start to push towards getting to the plus side on the ratings, the offensive rating, the defensive rating.
All right, we'll do last two questions. We'll go Kent and then Mike. Kent, go ahead.
Yeah, you talked about this week break as kind of a golden time of opportunity. Are you satisfied with, you've had a couple three practices and a day off. Are you satisfied that you're moving in the right direction? Have you liked how Fee is meshing with her new teammates? Just talk about how that process has gone.
Yeah, I'm really happy about it. Coaches find this time to be gold. I don't know if the players agree. They can't wait to play another game. They can, if you can't help, but I mean, we didn't have a very productive training camp. We've had a far more productivity in the last 3 days than we did at any point in the training camp. So it's necessary, and we're pleased with it. We're pleased with what we're getting done, what we're working on. I know that the players don't necessarily love it. Players like the bubble where you played every other day and you didn't hardly ever practice. So that's their preference. But in order for us to improve as a team, I think that, in terms of what we outlined, what we want to get better at, I think we're on track. We've got another couple of days, but it is challenging from a physical standpoint, that you got to find this balance of doing enough, because we would like to be a team that's in shape and well conditioned. I think we've made some progress there. But at the same time, you're trying to manage the overall health of your team.
All right, we'll go last question to Mike. Mike, go ahead. Mike.
Sorry, got to unmute here. That was part of my question. You were, I think it was after the New York game, you talked about, you were wondering about what shape your team was in maybe late in that game. And then another kind of a fourth quarter slippage on Friday. And you mentioned maybe you're getting better in that. How is that balance in terms of trying to make sure your players continue to get in shape and finish strong and then not wear them out either?
Yeah, it's so tough. You just do the best you can. You try to be selective about the ways that you do it. There's not the physical grind of 5-on-5 all the time. You certainly can get some things done without defenses on you. And we tried to focus on some of that in terms of the actual conditioning component. In some cases, it's a mental toughness, knowing that the team that you're playing against is tired. Because I know that there were times that in the last 3 games that we came to the bench saying, hey, that other team is tired. And it happens every game. I mean, if you're giving your all, you're going to be on the floor when you're tired, and you've got to be able to find a way to push through that. So I think there's a little bit of that. We've been communicating that to them. But yeah, I mean, these fourth quarter, where you have a team like Seattle on the ropes and we just couldn't respond. We had some bad turnovers, and all of a sudden nobody can make a shot. I mean, that just didn't feel very good for them. But I think overall, I think that, we're doing what we can, trying to manage the overall health of the team. Can you make progress in 3 days conditioning wise? I mean, I hope a little bit, but it's really hard. You're basically, when you're trying to play your way into shape, that doesn't happen fast. I know that, but I don't know if it's that bad for us, whether we're that far off. We have some players that I think are, but as a team, I think we're in decent shape. We just need to, push through the tougher moments in the game.
All right, everybody, that'll be it for Coach. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, Corey.
No problem. I'll get this link out to you as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.